I would love to see some weird indie film with this playing in it.
No question about it. This cinematically could be picked up by anybody tomorrow and used, and I would celebrate it.
It's my brain. Okay.
Can't unhear it.
This is a show about the 500 albums that Rolling Stone says are the best, and we're gonna talk about them ad nauseum. This is a show about the 500 albums that Rolling Stone says are the best, and we're gonna talk about them ad nauseum. This is a show about the 500 albums that Rolling Stone says are the best, and we're gonna talk about them ad nauseum. This is a show about the 500 albums that Rolling Stone says are the best, and we're gonna talk about them ad nauseum.
It was a dark and windy night. It's not windy anymore.
But moist.
Oh, it's quite moist. You know, there's people who can't hear that word without literally like puking.
Well, it's my podcast. I'm going to say moist.
Oh yeah, you can say it all you want.
Yeah.
There's a couple words like that I think trouble people. Moist. Yeah. All right, welcome back to Backwards Beats Podcast. I'm Carl Carter Fansteel.
And I'm Dan Woodard.
And this is the show where we look at Rolling Stone's greatest 500 albums of all time list as curated in 2023.
That is correct.
And we head from album number 500, and we're going to work our way over the next decade, all the way up to album number 1 on a weekly basis.
That is correct.
This week, we got a real fun album to talk about that kind of flew under the radar, I'd like to think.
At least under ours.
I mean, I wasn't born yet, so... it is I Want to See the Bright Lights Tonight by Richard and Linda Thompson.
Yeah, this is album 485.
Wow. And it is 1974 recording. Mm-hmm. It punches 53 minutes, 13 songs. The last 3 are live songs.
Yeah, the last 3 were part of a re-release.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
And so maybe that's something that we're catching on our Spotify front.
Yeah. And we might glaze over the last 3 because they're live, with the exception of 1.
Yeah, sure. It's a little different than anything else.
Yeah.
But I think it's a good full length album. And is this their first album? I didn't do the back research here.
I didn't write that down, did I? I think this is their first one together.
Okay,
I'll double check. But Richard Thompson started playing music. He's known for his virtuosic guitar playing. I don't know that you're going to hear virtuosity on this album, but you're going to hear some really good guitar playing on this album.
Certainly.
And he was a part of a British folk rock band, the Fairport Convention.
Okay.
And he left them in 1971 and started a solo career. And he and Linda Thompson, so they're a married couple. She's already an accomplished singer, and she became known really for her very powerful and emotive voice. And I think you'll hear that on this album.
Yep.
And she's definitely very folk influenced, and she was part of the Fairport Convention as well.
Okay, so they had a past in that project.
Yep. As well as some work with Gary Rafferty.
Okay.
And then essentially around 1972, they became married. They first recorded together on his solo album. I was going to say, that's what I was like, there was something before this, but that's what it was. But this is really their first album together.
Their effort where the 2 names are stamped on type thing.
Correct.
Got it.
Yeah.
All right. That's a nice little backlog there.
Yeah. One thing I find interesting about this, because of like my time and space, is Island Records. This is released on Island Records. And do you know, like...
I'm familiar with the publishing company, Island Records, but I'm not familiar with who else is on their catalog.
Lil Wayne.
Okay, so...
Anthrax.
Okay.
Like it's like... I know them from these other artists.
Out there, yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't have pegged them as a folk label, but I wasn't paying attention to them in 1974, so
Yeah, I guess it moves with the times. Also, this is an incredibly diverse album as a whole. If you think about song to song to song, they're really all over the place in their own little way. So I like it. It kind of makes me feel like if Island Records is a safe haven for new, forward moving, gonna stretch the field type of musicians, then I'd say it's a good fit.
yeah, I agree. I mean, this is a really well put together album. Definitely some diversity because it's very folk influenced, a lot of folk, but there's a rock edge to some parts of it.
There's a country edge to some parts of it.
Yeah.
There are the thing that sticks with me if I had to describe it to someone in the elevator pitch is there's an immense amount of different timbre and instruments played.
You'll hear some fun instruments on here.
So many instruments, and then also styles of playing instruments and vocals in this case are all over the place. Linda and Richard, who both sing on this album, there is no main singer. It's like they split the songs 50-50 in a weird way. Even they, song to song, aren't consistently singing in the same style that they did on the last one, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, if you look at, I think if you start off with, I guess, like Withered and Died, that has one very specific vocal style, and then you move to the title track, and
it's like all of a sudden a whole different way of singing.
Yeah.
And it's not just because the chord progression and the tempo change and the approach of how like the musicians are playing. Because Wither and Died, is it's what you think it is.
Yeah.
Off of the title, and it literally leans into that feel. But man, a couple songs later, we're upbeat, we're rolling.
Yeah, this is a very emotional album. A lot of disillusionment and loneliness.
Certainly, it seems to be the recurring theme.
Yeah, and this whole like search for meaning, I think.
Agreed. And it could be meaning, it could be love, it could be acceptance. I think meaning comes in multiple ways on this album, and you get to kind of hear it throughout the songs.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's interesting because this is considered a cornerstone of like folk rock, at least in British folk rock. But it's still kind of a cult album.
The numbers say that for sure. I'm looking at only, if you take the live songs out, it doesn't even matter actually. They don't really affect the number. Only 3 of the tunes broke the 1 million mark.
Yep.
On Spotify listens, and the one that really smashed it was the title track, I Want to See the Bright Lights Tonight, which has something going for it. But generally speaking, when you look at this album, I mean, the kind of center of it, you're only looking at 400,000-ish streams. And so, I would say it doesn't seem like it's smashed, but if you look at the pattern now that we're 15, 16 albums into this, that we've gotten to see over and over again, some albums are best of all time because they took a moment and they like really lived in it. Some of them gave other albums permission to exist. I'd argue this one probably is more of the latter.
That could be true, but if we're talking about folk, I think you already have some people who are pretty popular at this time.
Certainly. I mean,
you're going to have Bob Dylan already. You're going to have Joan Baez.
I was going to say, Joan Baez, how old was Mitchell at this point?
Right.
Yeah. So no, there's no question about it. But this to me, for this to come over and do well on the American list, right, I think is a big conversation as well.
Yep.
Because we're pulling like Celtic influences all day long, on top of stuff that just sounds like good old country. I mean, there's so much steel playing on this album, and this is a kind of swoony, bendy thing that I don't think that you necessarily attribute to music from across the pond. Yeah,
there's some guitar techniques too that I think for folk not very traditional
at all. And it almost is all rooted. I'd say at the end of the day, I would classify this as a folk rock album first and foremost, with heavy country and Appalachia type of twang.
Yeah, with some Irish seasonings.
Instruments, seasonings and vocal styles.
Yeah, you'll hear some interesting instruments on this. You're going to hear a mandolin
all day.
You'll hear the tin whistle.
Oh, yes.
accordion,
Yep.
concertina,
Yep.
crumhorn.
Okay. What you call me?
Crumhorn. I did. It's this bendy little double reed instrument. It looks like a recorder that has been bent, sort of shaped like a saxophone.
Yeah.
But it's
got that like reedy timbre.
It's going
to
to sound
it.
like an oboe a bit. Yeah.
You're going to get God knows how many different guitar and guitar styles. I mean,
Yeah.
the guitars on this album are an absolute highlight for me. The production on them is great, but there's a lot of bendy and like slide playing going on, and to the point where it's really tough to tell. Is that a lap steel? Is that a pedal steel? Is that just someone playing very awesome Derek Truck style 6-string? Like,
Yeah, I think he's doing some bending above the nut at certain points.
It certainly is.
Yeah.
I guess what we're saying is there's fantastic musicianship that carries this album, and I would say very mature musicianship as well.
Yeah.
If you listen song to song to song, their choice of instruments really, really varies, and they're really using all of the colors in the soundscape
Yeah.
per se.
Yeah. So, but when this album first came out, it was pretty much ignored.
Oh, okay.
It's been more posthumously. I think it was like in the 80s or so when it was re-released, when these additional last 3 songs came on, is when it got when it got more acclaim. It rates highly in a lot of lists now. Kurt Loder from MTV wrote an article in Rolling Stone about it that I think helped put it on the map.
Okay.
A little bit more.
I mean, to be frank, there's nothing on this album to reach out and like grab you as a radio song either.
Right.
That I think that would actually breach, with maybe the exception of the title track.
Yeah, there's one that stands out to me much more than that, but it could be because I'm a music nerd more than anything else. I think it's a beautiful song, but we'll get to it.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Any other insights on this album?
No.
All right. And now a moment from our sponsors.
So here's the deal. I'm not a professional brewer. Hell, I'm not a professional anything. But after a string of unfortunate circumstances, I decided to start brewing beer. Now, I didn't get into brewing because I knew what I was doing. I got into brewing because I had to get it together. After getting arrested for punching a police horse, then getting choked out by a drag queen, you'd think I'd learned my lesson. But no, I had to hit on my boss's wife at the company picnic. Don't ask me why. I wasn't even drunk yet, and she was fugly. So after my wife left me for some reason, I had to move on. But all I wanted was a drink that would hit me like I'd just been throat punched by the paraplegic arm wrestler after crop dusting him at the pool hall. I didn't have a plan. I didn't need one. What I needed was something that would keep me company. Something that would let me forget. So here's the deal. I made a beer. Not just any beer, but one that's bitter as my ex-wife after I knocked up her sister. We got 75% hops. And not the nice and fruity kind either. These are hops that were grown in a field that nothing else could survive in. Hops that ain't just bitter because of genetics, but because life didn't give them a break. Then, I threw in some roasted malt, dark as my soul after I got kicked out of that karaoke bar for singing Hocus Pocus by Focus. Coffee flavor? Yep. I grabbed them used filters from the dumpster behind Celia's Diner. I even tossed in some citrus peels from my neighbor's compost pile. And the water? Straight from the well behind my dad's shed. This beer tastes like a mouthful of pennies mixed with the drainage from a bloody nose. This isn't just beer. This is tears of ale. A heavy reminder that life's not always sweet. Tears of ale. A beer that makes sure that you remember.
One of these days. And take. I, for one, would lick it.
At least with somebody else's tongue.
That's right. All right, let's get into the A side of this album here. So this kicks off with the song When I Get to the Border. It has just under 1.5 million plays and weighs in at a hefty 3 minutes and 27 seconds.
I'm going to skip right into something because of a word you just said.
Okay.
You said album. And so this came out in 1974. Mm-hmm. So vinyl was the predominant medium for recording. And this production uses heavy panning of tracks left and right because stereo was cool.
Yeah.
Right?
Also, if you squeeze this many instruments into a song, you better have space for them.
Right. So how do you think a stereo signal gets on a vinyl record?
A stereo signal? That's a great question. So you're etching into vinyl, right?
Right. A vinyl record is a sound wave etched into vinyl.
Indeed. And so how do you designate what goes to what speaker?
Right.
I don't know.
So it's kind of crazy, right? So essentially the etching, there's basically two channels. There's an inner wall and an outer wall that goes in. The wall that's closer to the center of the record is usually reserved for the left channel with like a little bit of an, like, I think it's like a peak in between. And then there's the right channel.
How about that on the other wall?
Yeah. So I'm guessing, I never really thought about that because I had to look it up because I was thinking about it the other day. I was talking about it with my son. I'm like, how the hell does that work? And he started to explain to me to the best of his ability. I'm like, yeah, so I guess like that needle must be like a forked tongue. I mean, at the tiniest level.
Well, it is because it needs to read both sides.
Right.
Interesting. I didn't know about. I should know about this.
I should too. I just learned it. You know, I was like almost this many days old.
My family history. Mm-hmm. If you look it up, the Fant steel needle exists, and it's a record needle invented by my great grandfather, my namesake, Carl Fansteel.
Wow.
My great grandfather.
Sick.
And so there is actually a needle stylus under the Fant steel designation, alongside some other really cool inventions in that realm, in recording and record phobe world. Mm-hmm. I haven't done the deep dive. I have a book that was given to me that I really should read.
Oh, maybe we should do that as some side content.
Yes, a little side piece of the Fant steel record needle.
Yeah, it just really struck me because of the panning on this and the fact that that's the medium. And every time I've said, you realize that a record is a sound wave like etched into a solid.
Yeah, I never thought about it as two instead of one, right? Well, you learn something new every day.
There we go.
And they really needed that space on this tune because they introduced quite a few instruments. So having the wideness of this track comes to help it out quite a bit. It's well mixed. I enjoy, overall, I enjoy the mix on this entire album.
Yeah, it's well recorded.
If you look at 1974, we were not quite digital yet. So, you know, they're talking about 2-inch high-speed tape. You are limited to the amount of takes that you really have. Otherwise, it really starts to hit you in the pocket.
Yeah, well, you're still bouncing down.
That's right. It's possible to cut and make edits, but it's a real pain in the ass. It's easier just to play it again sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, so bouncing down, for those who may not know, is, let's say you have 8 segments of tape, 8 tracks.
Yeah, one is a voice, one is a piano, one is a guitar.
Yep. And eventually you want to add more instruments to it. What you have to do is you have to mix that, commit to it, and they'll say you'll bounce it down to a stereo track. So it goes from 8 down to 2.
And now you freed up 6 more channels.
They have 6 more channels to keep doing that. And you just keep doing that over and over again until you get enough instruments. It's really a commitment. It's we're so spoiled now that we can just like open up a DAW and just like, all right, 300 tracks.
Yeah.
Let's go.
And if I don't like it, no problem. Stop, re-record, redo. Memory's cheap.
Yep. Non-destructive.
Well, yeah, that's the craziest part here. There's the old wife's tale about Bohemian Rhapsody and how it was, like someone sneezing away from never happening, because they had cut that tape so many times and made so many stitches and so many edits to it, and Freddie Mercury still wanted to do more. And they're like, every time we do one of these, we risk losing everything we've done, because it's a physical, fragile piece of tape they were working with.
Right.
And finally they talked him into, you have to let it go. And this is a common problem in the studio. There's this kind of like, there's this little theory about falling in love with your demo.
Right.
I think that's some quirky name. But people get so used to hearing the way they recorded something on their iPhone, they actually can't hear it recorded through better mics with better instruments with great takes.
Yeah.
They only hear it the way that they recorded it. And finishing songs is incredibly hard.
It is. Yeah, you're right. And there's a lot of interesting stories about, falling in love with the demo and trying to recreate the demo. And then sometimes the demo just makes it.
Yeah. I mean, it's part of the songwriting process. It's just kind of odd in the sense that you dump so many resources, your time and your money mainly, into going into a professional studio, only to be blinded by what you've already heard.
Yeah. So about this song, we haven't talked about the song literally at all yet.
Yeah, true.
For me, there's an acoustic guitar intro that comes in, and for some reason, it goes there and it goes to a more like electric rocking
Sure.
sound. And even though it's the wrong key, like the strumming pattern of that and how it goes in there, I get Yellow by Coldplay.
Okay.
It's not as much of a stretch as you'd think, but it's a bit of a stretch.
I will be ear checking that after this.
Yeah.
As I am very familiar with the at least early Coldplay catalog.
Everybody knows Yellow.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you might be enticed by the tonality of his voice, in the sense that there's obviously an accent on it. It is 2-inch high-speed tape, just like Coldplay recorded, and mostly acoustic instruments in this case. This is a good tune. This song feels like it's a traditional. I use air quotes, like it feels like very folksy, like something like your parents would know this song,
Yeah, I mean, well, it has a mandolin, a tin whistle, accordion, concertina, and crumhorn on it. It has all these instruments that most people may have never heard of, except for the mandolin.
Oh, my favorite part about all of those is the trading 4s and sometimes 3/4s at the end.
All right, I'm turning my laptop around. Trading 4s on the outro.
Yeah, and it's not technically 4s because there's a bar of 3/4 for the turns. It's almost like trading 7s.
Yeah.
For those out there.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
There's this term that we use, especially in jazz, I feel like is kind of where it's most prevalent, called trading 4s. And the idea of trading 4s, I talked about this on my podcast with my father once too, is I'm going to play my instrument for 4 bars, and then Dan's going to play his for 4 bars, and I'll play mine for 4 bars. And it's a back and forth.
Right.
Now, mind you, there are very open rules after this. There can be, you can do like a call and response type thing where I'm going to play a phrase to you and then you're going to play it back to me on your instrument, modified or slightly different or upping the ante.
Right.
A la right?
100%. Yeah.
You don't have to stick in 4s. You can trade whatever the meter of the song is. So if the song is counted in 6 rather than 4, no problem. You're just trading, you're taking turns going back and forth. You can trade between more than 2 people. So you can have the guitar player trade to the bass player, to trade to the drummer, and then back to the guitar player.
Well, in this case, it's sectional 4s.
Yes, it is.
With a guitar solo.
Indeed. So they're all bouncing off of the guitar.
Yep.
And when we say sectional, we mentioned the massive amount of different cool, very folksy instruments in here. So you're getting a section of those sounds.
Yep. And then Richard hopping in and
kind of serving it back on the guitar, if you will.
Yep.
That's how the song ends. And it's not like it's a little part of the song. They do it for a minute.
Yeah. They fade out on it, actually.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And then the other part about that makes it so cool is the meter. To move out of counting things 1, 2, 3, 4, and just have that 1, 2, 3 moment. It really it lets the listener ear gets like, okay, here comes the next one.
And that's kind of a folk thing.
It is.
Sometimes people will shorten a measure just to get a phrase in, or lengthen extend a phrase to get a lyric in. And in this case, it's I don't know, it fits the genre perfectly.
It is. And I think it sets the tone too, in the sense that you are like, okay, these musicians all play. Like whoever produced a song and obviously the guy who wrote the song are very much into instrumentation. They're like wearing it out there.
Yep. Yeah. All these songs are written by Richard.
Yep.
With the exception of one, which is co-written by somebody. And we'll talk about that later.
Very cool and good to know going into it. Yep. I think it's such a great opening song. It's catchy. You feel like you heard it. You feel like you can sing along with it, honestly, after one listen. And it opens up the album.
Yep.
Moves on to Calvary Cross is song number 2. This upped its ante on listens threefold. It's almost 4 million listens.
Yeah, I think this one's interesting because it starts with like this Mixolydian drone kind of thing that's going on.
Yeah.
Ooh, I used a Greek word. I'll talk about that in a second. But
It gives off this kind of semitonal Arabian Nightsy like. Yeah.
So there's a drone going on. He's playing this scale. I think it's a bit of a Mixolydian thing. It's very free forming, and I'll tell you what Mixolydian means in just a second. And this is where I hear him bending above the nut. So there's 2 technical terms that just dropped. You want to take above the nut?
Sure.
That's a sentence I just said on a podcast.
Bending up. Yeah, I can't. I'm just laughing here. So above the nut on a guitar or a stringed instrument would mean. So if you look at the neck of a guitar and you can count the frets 1, 2, 3, all the way up to 22, sometimes 24, right? The nut is a little piece that holds the strings in place. That's all it is.
At the top of the guitar.
At the top of the guitar, next to those little tuning pegs that everybody's kid in the world wants to come and touch.
Yep.
Above the nut, but below the tuning pegs, you have the strings suspended in air, like a little suspension bridge. And there's a technique where you can literally push down on those strings and get a response from the guitar. It goes, right?
Yep. And that's all over this intro.
Oh yeah, totally. And it reminds you of sitar playing.
Right.
It's very much akin to that. And one of the things about the sitar is it has notes that aren't so locked in as our Western music notes. This semitonal, microtonal stuff. Yeah. So you can kind of get more emotion and, out of your string. Whereas on my guitar, I'm staring at right now, like you put your finger in between 2 frets, it's going to play that note. You can bend it and manipulate the note a little bit, and Lord knows he's doing this all over the album.
Yeah.
But even those bends are kind of cooked into a sound. So to play above the nut or bend above the nut will give you kind of a very Eastern music sound.
Yeah. And I'll just mention the Greek word I said, Mixolydian. We talked about, and I guess it was Bonnie Raitt, we talked about a major scale. So music was all intuitive, and then a bunch of nerds came in and started putting order and form around it.
Dorks.
And so I happen to be one of those dorks. I didn't come up with the form, but I understand it. So a major scale, there's really 2 flavors of scales. There's major and minor flavors of scale. And Mixolydian happens to be a major flavor of scale. A band that plays a lot of Mixolydian is AC/DC.
So is the Grateful Dead.
Grateful Dead, yeah. And so what that means is if you have a major scale, like a C major scale, if you go up 5 notes, so C major scale, C, D, E, F, G would be the 5th note, and you call that your starting point and play those notes, you have a Mixolydian scale. And all that means is it's talking about the space between the notes and in the sequence of them. So in a major scale, you have like a whole step. Yeah. And so all this means is that you basically have a major scale, which usually has what they say, a major 7th. Mm-hmm. In this case, it just has a flattened 7th.
So if you're looking at your piano in front of you and you're wondering the difference between those white and black keys.
Yep.
If we were in that key of C, it would be all white keys, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C.
Yep.
In this case, that 7th, that B,
correct,
which would be a white key, gets flatted or dropped down to the corresponding black key on the left.
Yep.
And it creates, and the Mixolydian sound is very easy. Once you heard some songs that kind of show off Mixolydian, you kind of hear it for life.
Yeah.
you can kind of identify it. And this flat 7 has a lot of neat stuff
Yep.
that comes with it. It's kind of bluesy at times. It can also be a very it can cause some stress that needs to be resolved inside of a song as well.
Yep. And I only bring that up because Richard clearly knows this stuff. There's stuff that happens later on that he'll get into, and I might mention another mode later on and maybe give a couple of examples of what that might sound like.
Cool.
But yeah, I just think it's an interesting intro that goes to something that's pretty kind of standard. Once you get out of that intro, you get into this sort of like, I'll say plotting.
No, I would say plotting.
Yeah.
I'm looking for a word. I mean, it's a 3-chord progression.
Yep.
And it is dirt slow. I mean, my God, it is like
Right.
The tempos across this album I really admire. It's really easy to speed up and play fast. It's really challenging to play slow. I know that doesn't seem intuitive for the non-musicians out there, but trust me on this one.
Yeah.
It's an accuracy thing a lot of the time.
Slow is harder.
And in this case, this song is don't. I mean, you really are feeling the weight of each chord hit.
Yeah. And what's also interesting is the chorus has a minor sound to me, but we're pretty much in F major.
Yeah, it's major chord, minor chord, major chord. The major chords are literally winning by there's 66% of it, but it doesn't feel that way.
Yeah, maybe we're not in F major. They're two, but anyway, there are more major chords than minor chords. It sounds minor until you get to the chorus where you kind of get a proper major, and it's really a nice
relief.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
You feel like in this downtrodden song, you get this glimmer of hope, and I think a lot of that is because of the harmony work done.
Yeah,
there's some really, really wonderful vocal harmonies, really just kind of swirling around your head, and those to me highlight minor chords.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of paints the picture. Also, there is this notion in music, whether you've thought about it or not, that this slower music like this just tends to feel sadder.
Yeah.
Right? No one hears Kool in the Gang
right.
and gets sad per se, unless, I don't know, like your dog got killed with the song.
Yeah.
But here you really can feel the emotion, and that has some effect.
You know, it's a great example of a major song that's slow and sad. Creep by Radiohead.
Of course.
It's in the key of G. He ends on like the major third, but it's not a happy song.
Speaking of chord progressions, you know, this is one of my favorite progressions that you'll see in songs that down the road in every genre. Couple off the top of my head, I was jotting down on my phone as we were listening to the song earlier.
Are you going to speak in Roman numerals?
Yeah, I totally will. Right, so this 4 minor 6 5 thing, right, is our 3-chord progressions. And if you're talking about Roman numerals here, not to give too many lessons today, but you know, you can literally call in a scale, you know, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, the 1, the 2, the minor 2, 3, the minor 3, right? And so in this case, we're 4 minor 6 5. 5.
Yep.
4 minor 6 5 5, and that's the progression that winds around this verse. The funny part is it never resolves this to back to that 1, and we mentioned this because there's a number of songs that do this. What's the song? Whenever you call me, I'll be there. I'll be around by the Spinners. It's 4 6 5.
Yep.
This Must Be the Place by Talking Heads.
Yep.
Native Melody.
Yep.
4 6 5. There's this great pile of songs that do this. In most recent times, you see this in songs like Closer. So baby, humming closer in the backseat of your Rover.
Yep.
These songs that never visit the 1.
Yep.
And I think it's a neat effect.
And that's kind of a Coldplay thing too.
Oh, totally.
Coldplay like embraces the 4.
Yeah.
Heavily embraces the 4.
You're seeing a world right now of music that heavily embraces the floor. 4-1 seems to be a really popular progression.
Yep.
What's that? The Vanessa Carlton Santana little bit of this. Isn't that a 4-1?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really pretty.
Yeah.
You're seeing it in pop music quite a bit though.
Yeah. So we'll get out of technical talk here, but to short circuit all of this, you have a scale. You can number those notes starting from 1 to 7.
Yep.
That's all we're saying is that we're doing that. And there's this type of notation they call Nashville notation. Mm-hmm. And the reason they use these Roman numerals is it becomes super easy if they just tell you what the chord numbers are. If the singer can't like sing it, like, all right, now we're going to play it in the key of A, but you already know
the chord numbers.
The numbers, so you just do that translation.
Transposing music a lot easier on the fly in the world of unknowns. And I would like to think in Nashville it's because they were just crunching out songs, or you end up with these performances and new singers on stage. As long as you know those Roman numerals, you're cool. You can really get through your keys quicker. I spend a lot of time teaching my students that. It's, for me, been the number one biggest game changer of my life is having some version of that system in play. It allows us to be incredibly diverse, doing open mics and jamming in other bands. It makes you a really valuable player.
Yeah. I had a situation I think I told you about where I was called in kind of last minute to play keyboards at this like Christmas thing. And the guitar player he actually gave me the charts he was using. So because I didn't necessarily know the song, so I was looking at them and I wasn't thinking about doing harmonic analysis to notate them. And I get to the gig and he slaps a capo on his guitar, which changes the key of the song. And I'm like, in real time, I like have to change the key of the song. So I'm like zoning in. I'm like, okay, and I'm trying to do the math in my head.
Sure. It's not easy. It's a nightmare scenario to receive what you did there.
Yeah, and I'm not really a keyboard player.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The good news is you get a fancy enough keyboard now. They have that transpose button.
Yep.
That's the way.
Yep. All right.
Real quick, a note on this song. I really love the effect that they have on the main guitar amplifier holding on the cordage.
Oh, yeah.
The pulsating. I think I have
it's like a tremolo.
It is. It's a trem. And it's notable on this Vox amplifier over here to my left. Vox are British amplifiers.
Yeah.
And they have these really cool tremolo, wah, 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 wah.
Yep.
And it creates a lot of emotion and movement. And I'd say that it's really important in this song. It's one of the things that keeps your ears embraced at such a slow tempo.
Yeah. Think Crimson and Clover if you want that for reference. Yep.
Let's go, Vox. We'll take a sponsorship.
All right. Let's do it.
All right. Moving on. The very uplifting title, Withered and Died.
Sure is.
The count here drops to under 1 million, but still pretty strong for the album, 813,000, weighing in at, let's see, about 3.5 minutes as well. And I gotta say, Withered and Died as a title really isn't reflective of the chords here. Like, it doesn't feel like, if anything, the tune prior to this would have, felt more like a Withered and Died type of chord progression vibe. Yes.
I give you that. Yeah. The funny thing is, right out of the gate, when I hear this, I get, because the song is in 6.
Yep.
I get, like, for the first 2 seconds, I get, Can I Have This Dance by Anne Murray?
Uh-huh.
But then her voice sounds like a cross between, all right, your eyes went up. Who do you have?
No. Okay. I mean, to me, it sounds like Patsy Cline.
Okay. Yep. Patsy Cline. Yeah. Actually, Patsy Cline's probably the best answer. I have her as a cross between Natalie Merchant and Joan Baez.
Okay.
Like if they had a love child.
I'll buy it. There's something in the back of the throat sound there.
Yep.
But, this song to me sounds like, 11:30 p.m. whiskey on the floor, little Texas Hall, back and forth swaying, hold your partner and dance to one of the saddest ass songs.
Yeah. Can I Have This Dance is not that song. It's the fact that it's in 6 and in sort of melodically.
Yep.
It sounds nothing like Can I Have That Dance. I like that song, but
it's a pretty tune. Yeah. I would say I'm surprised, but I now know the rest of the catalog. Yeah. It shares the stage once again in a very slow tempo. Mm-hmm. It's very temperate and metered, predictable. It's an easy listen.
Yeah.
In fact, most of these songs are an easy listen. I think it's important to highlight that for people who don't study music, there's this realm of like, here's some music that was written to mess with you, a la Mars Volta and, like you and Periphery nowadays, like Rush back in the day. Like, we are going to put together music that's supposed to be really stunning. King Crimson,
Black Midi.
Yeah, there you go. Nowhere, Lewis Cole, right?
Yep.
Chewy. Then here's very digestible, simple music, right? Which is, you listen to like a Green Day song. And not crapping on them. There's an entire market for that where it's like, give me it down the middle, boss. This album's neat because they're kitted and have all of the tools to be the first category. They're very good players. They have very incredible arrangements, yet they're serving them up with 5 ingredients, not 50.
Yeah.
And I really respect that.
In high quality ingredients.
Oh, absolutely. But the performances across this album are really, really nice. And I think it makes for a very comfortable listen. This song sounds like a song you heard. You just can't put your finger on it.
Yeah. I said off mic that I wish he threw a little Irish accent just because of the word withered.
Yeah. Withered.
It's not an Irish song at all, but I think it's a lovely song. And I love the concertina on this one.
Ooh, what's that?
Concertina is an accordion essentially, but it's a hand accordion. It's the one that you just, as opposed to the big giant.
Yeah. A little scaled back.
Yeah, let's scale back.
Distinct sound, and I think it's a great fit for the other instruments in the tune.
Yeah.
Really pretty little song to drop in at number 3.
And I think it leads really nicely into the next song.
How so?
I just think because you have Cavalry Cross has a bit of a rock vibe, but it's slow and brooding. This is a little bit more, has maybe Irish seasoning to it. It's not an Irish song, but
no, it's a folksy country song.
And now we need to like wake up.
Indeed. And this is to the title track of the song.
Yeah.
And you can see in the listens, they woke up 12 million listens.
Yeah.
And this is I Want to See the Bright Lights Tonight, song number 4. Funny, only 3 minutes and change, 3:09. It feels a little longer, doesn't it?
I think so. And this one here, you talked about Linda's vocal stylings.
Mm-hmm. Totally different than what she's done up to this point.
Very much so. She's doubled.
Yeah, indeed.
And in this one, I feel like she sounds like a cross between Joan Jett and Courtney Love.
Yeah, she definitely is putting on a rock sound here.
Yep.
Yeah, Joan Jett, Courtney Love, and what's her face from Heart? Anne? A little bit.
Oh, Ann Wilson?
Ann Wilson, thank you.
A little bit.
Just a scotch. It's only because I heard Heart in the car today.
Okay, so like the universe sort of sometimes comes into play here. So I was rewatching for probably the 350th time the Kennedy Center Honors for Led Zeppelin.
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen?
I've seen
Ann and Nancy Williams doing Stairway to Heaven.
Yeah, I've seen that one.
That's like a life-changing performance, and there's a whole story behind that. But
like the guys are like crying.
yeah, and there's a few things. Like one of the things that they had done. So Jason Bonham.
I was gonna say, yeah, isn't Bonham's kid drumming this one?
He's drumming in it, but that's not why they're crying. They were actually mad at him because he played with them, and they're like, "Hey, will you come to the Kennedy Center Honors?" And he's like, "I can't. I got a gig." And didn't tell them that it was that right? And so the song starts off, and it's just Ann and Nancy Williams, just Wilson, just doing the beginning of Stairway to Heaven, and then more of the band gets revealed over time, and it's like ends up being this big choir, and they're all wearing the John Bonham derbies, and finally Jason Bonham comes into view, and
on the big drums,
on the big drums, and they've got to be saying like, what, like. They were thrilled that he was there.
Indeed, it was a good-natured prank.
Yeah, but they were like proper mad that he wasn't going to be there to represent his father at this big honor for them.
I mean, the cover is incredible.
Yeah,
the cover is incredible.
So anyway, back to center here. Yeah.
So this tune takes it yet again in a full different direction. We're now hearing our fourth style of music.
Yeah.
4 songs into an album.
Right, because this features the CWS Manchester Silver Band.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
It's like all those horns that we're talking about.
Yep.
This is a band, the brass band that started in Manchester, England in the 1900s.
Oh, wow.
So it's like a
torch-bearing name type thing.
Yeah. And they did a lot of, basically, they were a brass band. They did some sort of classical stuff. They performed at National Brass Band Championships, things like that. And then work their way into this album. In the horns, there's a tuba. Like, it's so great.
There's a very staccato saxophone. It's so funny. The first time you hear the trumpets, I thought it was almost an emulated trumpet, like Lowry organ sound.
Yeah.
They almost sound so fake. because they're controlled. They're doing a pretty hard technique where they're kind of shaping their notes, and I was like, that's not a real trumpet. And then later it becomes quite evident it is.
Well, because they're an elite brass band.
It's impressive.
Yeah.
You get something here that all of a sudden is truly rock and roll, first and foremost. And add a horn section, very of the 70s, right? You got a pretty grooving song. Linda carries this one on vocals. My notes on this one, it sounds like Little Feat, or like really old Steely Dan before
There you
Donald
go.
Fagen became the singer.
Yeah. Okay.
You know?
I couldn't place it.
But it grooves. It feels like an East Coast groove.
Yeah.
And it's once again not fast. It's not a fast song.
No, it's a mid-tempo rocker, guitar tone, a little Rolling Stones.
Totally. He's doing his bendy stuff on there. There's a notable filter that we heard during our listen back today on that hard left panned guitar as well. But now they're really starting to play with modern production techniques of the time. This is the song for sure, and it reflects by the listens here. This one could have been a B radio song.
Yeah.
Not A, but B.
Yeah. I would love to see some weird indie film with this playing in it.
No question about it. This cinematically could be picked up by anybody tomorrow and used, and I would celebrate it.
Yeah. I never saw the movie Perks of Being a Wallflower, but I'm aware of it. It's one of the first movies that Emma Watson did after Harry Potter.
Okay.
I know that. And for some reason, and all I've seen is a trailer of it. I think it's just awkward kids. I think that's the story of it. Awkward
Sure.
teenagers is for some reason, I feel like it would fit into that movie, even though I've never seen it. So I'm already producing that film that's, I don't know, 10, 12 years old, however old it is.
It just goes to show how powerful music is in film.
Yeah.
Did you watch any of the Oscars the other night?
I did not. I spent my time watching the Grammys, which was worth it. Oscars.
I only watched it because my whiskey club that I'm in, which has now become more of a beverage and good food club, used it as a theme for this month.
Okay.
And one of our members rented out a house on the Chesapeake Bay and he's always wanted to throw like an Academy Awards watch party.
Okay.
And so I watched the whole freaking thing. I won't be doing that again.
No.
All right. If you want to get into this album, I would say jump right into the first song when I get to the border, and then move immediately to song 4. I want to see the bright lights tonight. I'd say that because these two songs will keep your attention.
Yep.
And then you can dive into some of the slower and more sing-songy, thoughtful stuff.
Yeah. Sounds good. Nice recommendation.
Yeah. And then this brings us to song number 5, Down Where the Drunkards Roll.
It sounds like it, man.
Halethorpe, Maryland. You got to love that they start the song off by essentially sound checking the Wurlitzer or Rhodes keyboard.
Yeah. And so I did pregame with you on this one. Here's a really bizarre connection that I got is that sound checky thing. In the movie Into the Wild, Kristen Stewart and Emile Hirsch are performing a version of Angel from Montgomery. Beautiful song. And Kristen Stewart is playing guitar.
Yep, acoustic.
Yep. And Emile Hirsch is playing a Wurlitzer. And the way he kind of comes in, like, because it's actually a mostly improvised performance that they did live in front of a real audience. And so when I first heard that improvised Rhodes, it brought me to that song. This song sounds nothing like Angel from Montgomery, but again,
some instruments have a way of putting you into a mindset, and these specifically these 70s electric pianos, which versus their counterpart, the traditional piano that was at your grandma's house is a stringed instrument. These were not. These when you hit a key, it strikes a tine, a little metal chime, if you will, and they have these. It's just a whole different sound. It defined the Motown era. I mean, any kind of jazzy influence from Herbie Hancock to Steely Dan to they all relied pretty heavily. And to this day, when I'm buying a new keyboard or something like that, we're seeking things that have a good Wurlitzer or a good Rhodes sound to them.
Yeah.
Because it's such a nowadays R&B, neo soul, jam bands rely on these sounds.
It's a beautiful sound. There's usually a bit of an oscillator to some of them.
Sure.
That
kind of gives some movement.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the song opens up, with this kind of funny misplacing keyboard that then finds its place pretty quickly.
Yeah, I think she sings so precisely on this one. Almost no vibrato, except for when she needs it, but she's singing just straight pitches.
Yeah.
Which becomes important when I don't think it's Richard singing, but a male vocal doubles her an octave below. That's pretty low because she's singing low, like alto register.
It's one of 2 times in this album that somebody decides to bring in a bass vocalist.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, this song is not going to, break any charts anytime soon. And I think it actually is just kind of this... It once again does a very good job of fitting its description. They've painted a picture at a low tempo, just a couple of effective chords to talk about an area down where the drunkards roll, but they're talking about more than that.
Yep. Yeah. I do like this song.
I think if you look at what I call the A side of this record, right? Take out the 3 live songs at the end. You have 10 songs. So split it at 5. Mm-hmm. This is a freaking great EP. The first 5, you listen to them and call it a day.
Yeah.
I'm happy with that album.
And it's where the album switches sides.
There we go. I'm
IRL.
so glad.
Yeah.
Well, if you give us a chance, we are going to go switch over real quick to a break and probably a fresh beer. We'll be right back with you.
Whisperflix just dropped their latest tracks, and it's totally my favorite ASMR streaming service. It's like nothing you ever heard before. I mean, you spend hours scrolling hoping to find the perfect sound to either calm you down or totally freak you out. Well, Whisperflix has got you covered, no matter what you're in the mood for. They've got the usual suspects like soft whispers and tingles, and comforting crinkles, but they also have next level stuff that will absolutely blow your mind. Take Gross Delight, for example. It's a whole playlist of sticky, squishy sounds, basically ASMR's guilty pleasure. It'll either make you shiver or have you gagging, and I'm here for it. And if you're into a little bit of dark vibes, you've got to try out Creepy Calm. It's the perfect mix of relaxation and eerie. Like, imagine trying to chill with a ghost that's watching you. Definitely a vibe for those brave enough. Oh, and don't get me started on Office Chill. It's like you're at work without the work part. Keyboards clicking, sticky notes being flipped, and the psh of a coffee maker. I swear, it's like productivity without all the stress. Honestly, whether you're trying to zone out, get creeped out, or just make your day weirdly perfect, Whisperflix has a sound for it. And you can stream it all the time, anytime, anywhere. New tracks are added weekly.
Where do you think the phrase "all that and a bag of chips" actually came from?
I'm not sure.
It's kind of cringy. I don't think I ever said it when it was, in fashion to say it.
So when was it in fashion?
I feel like that was a 90s thing, right?
Yeah.
Mid 90s.
Yeah.
Ugh.
The 90s are awesome. That was
not one of the hot parts.
No.
I think every generation has its cringy statement.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Let's look at the B side of this album. We open up on song 6, We Sing Hallelujah. And, I think if you're turning that vinyl over, take another toke, ready to get those ears excited again, this is not a bad tune to open on.
Well, after Drunkards, I think this song is where the Drunkards were rolling.
Ah, I see what we're doing here. We're like in media res, if you will.
Yeah.
Tarantino.
Yeah. Yeah, we're out of sequence because this is a drinking song.
It is. And talk about a song that once again feels really familiar. Mm-hmm. You feel like you heard this a million times because you've heard prototypes around it. This song is just pretty much better. It's got really fun chords, really fun instrumentation, some nice little held over rhythmic lines where they'll just keep another 2 beats because who cares?
Yeah, and a lot of times, English singers, you can't hear the English accent.
Yeah.
And Richard goes in and out of whether you hear the English accent. It's here. I don't mean this to be disparaging. I get like discount Jethro Tull in his voice.
Okay.
On this one. I don't mean it to be disparaging to say discount because
like less committal Jethro Tull.
That's probably
what
I mean by discount.
Yeah, I feel that entirely.
Yeah.
This song is very of its area. It sounds like one thing and one thing alone.
It's a pub song, but could fit very nicely at a Renfest.
I love it. Give me a turkey leg and a Jacob's ladder and God.
You got the crumhorn back. It's in the lower octave vocals in here, even though the vocal mix on this is a bit of a train wreck, but I kind of feel like they might be half in the bag singing around one mic.
Totally. Or if they're not, it's kind of meant to feel like you're surrounded by people at different distances. Like it just so happens that the guy singing bass is sitting right next to you and Linda's across the bar.
Yeah. In your studio monitors, not so egregious. In AirPods,
it's my God, it's nothing but the bass singer.
Yeah.
But I'm
willing
willing
down my spine. Yeah.
I'm willing to give him a free pass on this one. Because otherwise, up until now, the production of this album has been very, very good, super enjoyable. Nothing really sticks out.
Right.
And so when you find that nail that you can hammer back in, you go after it.
Yeah. But this is a fun song.
Absolutely. I would endorse anybody giving this a good listen. Though it doesn't seem like the people gave it too good of a listen. In fact, this whole back half kind of lacks in numbers here. This was only 369 or 96,000. So not even 400,000 listens on this relatively short song, under 3 minutes.
Yeah.
All right. Moving over to song number 7. Has He Got a Friend for Me?
I don't think you agree with me on this because there's something I said before, but this song, it's a song of loneliness and forlorn.
Oh, there's no question about that.
Right. And harmonically very rich. But lyrically, as you get to the second half of this, I said this is like damaged level of like self-loathing.
She references her own death in horrid ways.
Yeah.
And self-image issues.
Yeah.
This, surprisingly, is my favorite song on the album.
It's a good song, no doubt, but it makes me so sad to listen to. I want to like give her a hug.
I do too want to give her a hug. However, I like every element in this song. They've stripped back their band. It's so singer focused. And the message is literally, I'm freaking lonely. Second verse, hey, your boyfriend's cute. How do I get one of those? And the third is essentially, I hate myself. I'm probably not going to get one of those. But there's a little bit of hope.
So is this Nick of Time?
Oh no, hot take. I know what you're building your next digital short on. We're going to use the meta of our own song analysis to fuel another song's analysis.
Right.
It has it, but I think this is a common theme in love and poetry in singers, which is, lust, wanting for something you don't have and wondering if it's due to the things you lack. Mm-hmm. That's not a new trope.
Not at all. This song is far more harmonically sophisticated than the big breakdown I did of Nick of Time.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do that for this one.
No, but I love this tune. I like where it's positioned on the album. I like just the earnesty of it. Mm-hmm. I like that you can hear every word and really it tells the story. And in this song sounds the part of the story. It's a perfect backdrop.
Yeah. Very sad.
Fantastic tune.
Yep.
Listen to it. Just don't expect to party to it.
No, this is not party rock in the house.
No. Massive change of tone between these two. Moving to song number 8, Little Beggar Girl.
Yeah, the very first intro chords, I get some Tom Petty, Mary Jane's Last Dance, opening strum.
It's that sound of that Telecaster. If it's not a Tele, it's a Rick, but it has an Americana mixed with classic rock and a la Stones, right?
Yeah.
There's a famous Telecaster player for you.
Mm-hmm. For 2 seconds.
For all of 2 seconds.
Yeah.
And then it turns into
an English folk dance with a jig in your right ear.
Literally. Someone's going bananas on a mandolin on stage left. Yeah. And it's It's a fun tune.
I really like this song. This is Little Beggar Girl. I don't think I said the
Little
title.
Beggar Girl. Yeah, and it's catty, and she literally is kind of saying, I might be a little beggar girl, but look at the rest of this messed up world. I don't mind taking your resources.
Right. Yeah, I like the mix of electric guitar and like cool rhythmic displacement. There's a lot of stuff that almost feels multimeter. It's not. They're just emphasizing strong and weak beats. And then you get these like really cool like hits on beat too.
Yeah. Hit.
Yeah.
Hit.
Yeah.
And it's where, a good hand clap should fall anyway.
Right.
But it catches your ear. It's a really nice way to show off a chorus. On one of the lighter songs on the album, when I say light, obviously not the same content as the last one. Yeah, you kind of want to swing a beer glass around to this one as well. This falls in the pub song category for me.
Yeah, not as intense as Hallelujah, but
they're
it's
sharing a stage
for sure.
Overall, really fun listen, and then I think a much needed energy brought to the back half of the album after having listened to "Has He Got a Friend for Me?"
Yeah, I agree.
Her vocal performance, I think, is really great. She leans into it. It's playful. And it's kind of like bitey.
Yeah, yeah.
And it goes to show the breadth of her ability to really take on all these different identities, like an actor would an accent for a character.
Yeah.
She's now saying so many different ways on this album.
And I think they're both really talented singers. I think she's, if you had to rank them, she has a lot more variety.
Yeah, she's a little more impressive. But, I mean, she doesn't shy away from harmony either. I've so far really like the blend and shared responsibility.
It feels like teamwork.
It truly feels like, all right,
she's the captain and Tennille, man.
She's not singing on Richard's album.
No.
This is Richard and Linda Thompson. That makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Now, if he was a real gentleman, he would have put her name first, but whatever.
That's not how that works.
Nah, I don't think so.
Not back then.
He's like, I'm playing the guitar.
Yeah.
You get in the back seat.
Yeah.
Fun tune. Moving us on into song number 9, and we're really going on an emotional roller coaster because this song is "The End of the Rainbow."
And you know what? There's nothing.
There's nothing there.
There's nothing at the end of the
According to
rainbow.
Richard Thompson. This is a sad tune. It's my other production qualm on the album. There is a notable volume drop on this song compared to all of its counterparts on the album.
Yeah.
It really falls out by a few dB and feels, because of that, and then of course the tone of the song and the tempo of the song, it just feels a little lost until it establishes itself.
Yeah, my first notes were the song feels a little tired to me. Mm-hmm. And I think it's because of that, because the guitar playing on this is fantastic.
Some of the best on the album.
Yeah.
Yeah, this tune is it's a sad tune again. This is Richard's "Has He Got a Friend for Me" in his own sense.
Yeah.
Kind of there ain't nothing behind the curtain message.
Yeah. But yeah, and I think also because I wonder if they rearranged some of these songs.
How so?
Well, all right, He's Got a Friend for Me is beautiful but slow. So if you think about the back half of this album, we sing Hallelujah. All right, here we go. We're singing Hallelujah. And we immediately go
Plop, yep.
Right? And then we bring it up again and then
Plop.
Right? And the last song's slow too.
Indeed.
And I feel like the arrangement, I don't know what the proper order is. I feel like these songs are out of order.
So I will agree with you there. There is no arc or story on this album as far as I can tell. And we've had albums we've reviewed where there's an obvious arc. Mm-hmm. We've had some where there's then like oh, that worked out well. Was that intentional?
Right.
Here it's kind of scattershot. If anything, I would say maybe they put some idea into what you're alluding to, which is, hey, that was real slow. Let's pick it up. Mm-hmm. And then they've literally just kind of on off it.
Yeah.
It's definitely heavier on the slow tempo and lower energy front overall.
Yeah, and I think just for my taste, I would prefer to be in a slow period, then be in an up period, as opposed to like a schizophrenic
back forth.
Yeah.
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 I think I would rather ride that wave the same way.
And no complaint about any of the songs. Actually, I like all these songs.
Yeah, me too. If you look at the collection of the first 5, it would be interesting to do like one of those like super fanboy Tool things. Like, hey, how would you what song would you put everything on Lateralis into to tell a different story? You know,
Yeah.
Like fan fiction resetting up of album. I feel like you and I would probably come up with something a little more inspired. But I don't know. I'm not Richard or Linda Thompson.
I have no songs on Spotify that have 12 million listens.
Yeah, so I don't know that we're qualified.
No.
Thoughts on this tune outside of the guitar playing and the message?
Not really.
Yeah. I'm happy it exists where it does in the album. It's for energy a low light, but it does not make it a bad song. He sounds stripped and vulnerable.
I think what it is for me is I like the song before this and the song after this better. So now that I know what's coming, I don't care to hear it.
It kind of gets rolled.
Yeah, I'm like, next. Let me hear
There you
next.
go.
Yeah,
Fair enough.
I think it suffers from that for me.
Yeah, I'll buy that. Well, that does bring you to the final of the studio recorded songs on the album, which is song number 10, The Great Valerio.
That's how she pronounces it, Valerio. Yeah. This is my favorite song on the album.
Why am I not surprised?
The song surprises me harmonically, melodically, lyrically.
Vocal performance-ly.
Oh my God. The melody of this song is beautiful. It's flowing yet angular.
It's like looking at a still pond in the morning before anything jumps in. It's wild, the control that she has. There's like real no vibrato, these strong, accusing notes almost.
And I would say some of those accusing notes are I'm staring at that still pond, to carry your metaphor forward, and you're all in Zen, and a freaking fish jumps right in front of you and scares the pants off you.
There you go.
There's a little of that in there. But beautiful song. And this will be the second song where we mention the Phrygian mode.
Indeed. Well,
Because we mentioned it on Shakira.
Oh, so we're moving outside of the album. I love this.
Yeah. And so I talked about Mixolydian earlier in this episode. So Phrygian's just another mode. We don't have to get stressed about
Another
it.
series of notes.
Yeah. And this one here, if you're to play a C scale, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, that's a C scale. If you then want to play a Phrygian, which would be related to that, you would just take those exact same notes and start on the E. And what makes it really interesting is normally with a C scale, you have do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. But with Phrygian, your second note is a half step, which is a minor second. And
it's as close as two notes can get in Western music.
In Western music, correct.
In fact, when you stack two notes a half step apart, that's how we made car horns. Because it's such a jarring sound.
Yes.
They literally used this note relationship so that it catches your attention.
Right. But done beautifully. And my hot take here is I hear this song for the first time. I'm in the car. I'm like, is that a flat 2? I need to know what the chords are. And when I get to work, I just like Google and try to find the tabs for this. Every tab, if you want to learn this song, don't read any of the tabs. They're all completely wrong.
Everything online is fake.
They're wrong. And so this would be in the key of A Phrygian. So in the example I gave you before, I'm not going to go hard into modes here, but the example I gave you before, I said, the relative Phrygian to C is E. In this case, the relative major to A Phrygian is F. So it's an F scale. So you're going to have F, G, A, B flat. That's your half step. And then all the rest white keys again. So in this case, it's A and B flat are your secret notes. And the bass line of this is going from A to B flat.
So they're really leaning, but when you use the bass to do that, the bass sets the tone for any music, right?
Yep.
When you have your bass highlight that movement, you're not hiding. You're really leaning into this decision.
Right. And her melody, when that's happening, she lands on the G, which is the flat 7, which we talked about before in our Mixolydian conversation.
Yeah.
So they're really shaping this Phrygian feel, which very often can be Middle Eastern. Song does not sound Middle Eastern at all.
No, and it's so funny because I feel like you only hear Phrygian used in a Middle Eastern play nowadays. This is just some of the most interesting chord structures I've ever heard on a pop rock album.
And she has a really hard job of trying to get these melodies in place. So yeah, it's a very difficult melody to sing, and it's going through this motion. And I didn't break it down, and I'm not going to bore everybody with all the technical details, but I probably already have. But then it gets stranger because there's a key change essentially, where, like I said, we're in the key of A Phrygian, and essentially it changes key, I think, into C, which would be C Mixolydian.
Sounds about right.
And they do it by pivoting off of. There's two really strange chords. It sounds like I'm saying a lot of strange stuff. I'm literally talking Greek. So I mentioned that the A Phrygian has a B flat in it, and there's two strange chords. One is, I think it's a G dominant chord, which requires a B natural.
Oh no, this was an A dominant chord. Because I played it on the guitar.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Don't they capo this?
I capo it.
My bad.
We're both right.
Yes.
Yes.
But that dominant chord, once again, reserved for turnarounds in jazz and kind of hokey sounding.
Yeah.
Not in this context. Once again, you find this chord and it's incredible. It sounds beautiful over whatever the rest of the soundscape is.
Yeah. So it's appropriate for you to correct me. All the chords I just said are based on a capo being on the second fret of your guitar. So if you're a guitar player, put the capo on the second fret, and everything I said is now true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But once again, odd choice of chord that ends up being splendid.
Mm-hmm. But what's nice about that odd choice of chord is that B natural, when you finally do that pivot, or you said it's an A dominant, right? So it'd be a C sharp.
Yep.
Is the correct note. So then the pivot, I'm saying it's on B because of the capo, but it's really C sharp. You already heard that C sharp foreshadowed before. It still sounds weird when it comes in because it's alarming because you're very minor, flat 2, and all of a sudden now it's a natural
major lift,
2,
yeah,
right? And so I don't know. It's just a beautiful little thing, and it only happens for a second.
But you don't get here by accident ever. It would have had to have been a literal miracle for someone to stumble over this. This is a written part. There's only so much you can sing over this part and get away with too. This is all by design, and it needs to be highlighted.
Yeah.
Even if you totally lost where we're going with this, understand that this songwriting here is brilliant, and I'm not using that in any exaggerated way.
No. And in the 90s, the grunge movement, certain artists got credit for their harmonic interest, and there were certain people, Stone Temple Pilots, for example, who actually knew
their stuff.
Their stuff. And then you have Nirvana, who didn't know their stuff. Kurt Cobain didn't know any of this crap I'm talking about, but his ear brought him there.
Yeah.
Right. And that was just a natural, this sounds good to me. And that's part of his genius. He just did that with his ear. I didn't look into it. I've got to imagine that Richard has some training.
Yeah, it has to be. You don't ear yourself into this one.
Yeah.
Because, you and I are sitting here listening through, professional studio monitors, just a half hour ago to this tune and going, whoa, man. And we're still getting excited. Like you're walking to the bathroom, but keep having to run back in to keep talking about it. Like
right.
Kind of excitement.
Yeah. I literally said, grab a guitar. I started it. He's got the guitar, and it took a minute
just to even move.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So all of that nerd stuff, let's cut the crap on the nerd stuff. This is a beautiful song.
Indeed it is. Signature kind of pace, tempo, and feel for this album. They do slow and moody so well. Time and time again, and this song might actually be the best of the best on the album to showcase that.
Yeah. Slow is hard.
Slow is hard. And, they made this effectively their exit track, because the re-release of this album is the one that had the 3 live recordings at the end.
Correct.
And they really milk that. This is one song where at the when we were talking about, I'm not sure that they didn't scramble these songs all around for energy and mood. This one was always planned to be the last one because the outro on it says so.
Yeah, and this, to me, if we want to flash back to episode 1, this is Backseat.
Oh wow. Okay, yeah, I'll buy that.
Because that
from
Backseat
Arcade Fire.
On Arcade Fire's album Funeral, Backseat is probably the most divergent song on that album.
Yeah, I'd buy that.
As is this one.
Yeah. And you place it at the very end. They really take their time exiting this song. It goes out on this great little tone. It goes out on the 7th. We determined, which for folks out there who did study, you don't leave things hanging on the 7th.
Not usually.
These guys did.
They did.
And they didn't. And once again, by design, this song does something really special for me at the end of the album. It wraps it up in a bow. It says, "There's your listen. We earned all of this kind of praise and talk, and I think that it fits perfectly."
Yeah.
Well
done.
Do you want to talk about any of the live tracks at the end, or should we move on?
I want to talk about, so there are 3 live tracks. One is the title track live.
Yeah, I want to see the bright lights live.
The next one is Together Again,
which was not on this album.
It's not on this album, and it's the only song that has a co-author attributed to it.
Oh, fun.
And then the last song is Calvary Cross, which we've already heard. So I want to talk about Together Again. Not much about the song. I want to talk not even about the co-author so much. There's another level I want to go to. So Together Again, I think we've agreed that it kind of sounds like Blueberry Hill.
It's kind of a boogie or Oh Darling.
Yep.
It's 6/8 time to chaka to chaka, right?
Yep. So the co-author on this song is a gentleman by the name of Buck Owens.
I've heard of Buck Owens.
So Buck Owens is a country guitar player, probably more known as a co-host on a country music sketch comedy show from the 70s called Hee Haw.
Hee Haw.
Are you familiar with that show?
I know it exists. I've never seen it. I have no idea how to talk about it.
It kind of predates me. Maybe it doesn't. I certainly watched it as a kid. And his co-host was a gentleman by the name of Roy Clark. Are you familiar with Roy Clark?
No.
Get yourself familiar with Roy Clark. Roy Clark is this virtuosic. He's known as a country player, but virtuosic, phenomenal guitar player.
Okay.
In Hee Haw, so Buck Owens plays guitar and is a great musician in his own right. But Roy Clark is this person that I feel like he was known for being great. Another country great guitar player, is Vince Gill, is a phenomenal guitar player. Roy Clark is out of this world technical.
So you go for Buck, you stay for Roy?
Yeah, and I'll put in the show notes. He's known for a number of songs, but probably most prominent for Malagueña. Do you know that song?
No, you're speaking.
So it's a Cuban song, flamenco based, but with this really hard, impossible, strumming pattern where it feels like just your regular sort of flamenco strumming with these accents. But when you watch him play it, it's I'm not sure how the accents are happening.
Yeah, it's just that level of he just looks bored.
Yeah, I'll put a YouTube link into it. And I remember seeing, so I saw him on Hee Haw when I was a kid, and like I said, it's a sketch comedy thing. It's all this tongue in cheek, making fun of country folk, kind of thing with musical guests.
Yeah.
that sort of thing. And when I saw Buck Owens, I'm like, Buck, that's got to be Buck from Hee Haw. And then Roy Clark. And I figured like Roy Clark's probably one of those people that he was legendary in his time that's forgotten. So since I have
a platform that will do this,
check out Roy Clark, man.
All right, we're getting a T-shirt made for Roy Clark. Yeah. Well, I think it's funny because for me, what this does is it locks up that identity crisis we talked about at the very beginning of this podcast. Is it pulling from a lot of the kind of like, the area of which they're in, the UK music, the Irish pulled stuff, the Scottish pulled stuff, just music that we just don't hear very naturally at our age here in America. But also it proves they pull from that country bag.
Yeah.
And you heard many times over and over, that his guitar playing, especially when we're talking about the Telly stuff earlier, right? That is like the go-to country electric guitar, and that style that you get from it. Wrap up those two kind of styles alongside some rock and some really, really good ballads, and you've got a really well put together act here.
Yeah. I really, really enjoy this album.
So is it safe to say you would hit it?
I would hit it, but I have something that I think I'm coming to realize with this list. And I'm curious your thoughts on this. So I understand why someone might put this on this list. But I think there's a different list that this belongs on, because this was not super well received initially. It's not heavily listened to, but high quality music.
Yeah.
And if I'm looking at the 500 greatest albums of all time, I have to imagine that there are people that may have influenced a generation that belong on this list more. But if there's a list of the 500 or 200 best semi-obscure bands that musicians must listen to or people must listen to, 100% I would recommend this album.
Yeah, so for me, I think that's what this list is. I came into this today with one line written in my head that's not actually written, but one idea that I've been carrying for a few days now, which is this album, for me, checks the box that I thought I was going to have checked every week on this project. Wow, I'm going to learn about these crazy albums that I would have never, ever, ever stumbled over in a million years, and find a real gem. It took 16 albums for me to finally get that. This is the first one where it's like, there is a 0% chance I would have ever found this on my own. I'm pretty sure. But now that I have it, it's never going to leave me. And I'm really happy about that. And it's reinforced me a little bit. Does that sound stupid?
Yeah. So, and that's why I try to make the differentiation, because if it's 500 albums you should listen to.
Yeah, there you go. But that's how I hear this at the end of the day. That's greatest albums of all time. What's that even mean? Right? It's so subjective.
Right.
But I think we both are learning something about the way this list is built and shaped.
Yeah.
And remember, we're still in the caboose. You have to think, right, that the last 50, 40 albums on the list are either, because of relevance and what it taught people over time, super gimmies for somebody who's just bugging the editor of this list over and over, right? I think some of the most taboo stuff we're going to listen to actually all lives in 450 to 500.
Probably, yeah. And I mean, there's only one article, I haven't looked super hard, but there's only one article that talks about the curation of this list. Did you ever read that?
No. You'd think I'd put in some effort.
Yeah, you think you would. This is your idea. So I finally read it. I've seen it. It's at the beginning of the
you're
page.
just talking about the forward before the whole thing. No, I've read that.
That there are 300 people that actually contributed to this list, including people we've heard of.
I've read that.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you meant there was a separate article.
No.
Okay.
But they don't really tell you what the rubrics are, just
because you can't have one.
Right. You can't have, yeah.
I mean, at best you can 1 to 10 your existing list and then put them in order, maybe.
Yep.
But I think this is just a shit ton of opinions, right? And whoever contributed this one, thanks.
Yeah. And we're just two dudes with opinions too.
Yes. If you want to share your opinion, you can easily find us on Instagram.
At Backwards Beats Podcast.
And we would love to interact with y'all some more. We are started to interact with some fans and followers this past couple of weeks on our email.
backwardsbeatspodcast@gmail.com.
And speaking of followers, Dan, you have a little public service announcement.
Yeah, so looking at the metrics, I'm not dying over these things, but I would say half of the people who listen to this podcast don't actually follow us. And I would like to try to grow this audience. That we both like to grow this. And if you're finding value out of this, I would appreciate an actual follow on whatever platform. Spotify, Apple are the two, for better, for worse, are the two leaders. So if you could follow us on that, that would be super helpful. Just hit that follow button.
That's all you have to do.
That's all you have to do. And if you really want to, a rating would be even better because that helps get this podcast out in front of other people. So hit the rating. You can't, obviously you're already listening to this. But if you want to give it to a friend and say, go ahead and rate this, they have to at least listen to one episode. But anyway, we would really appreciate it.
Anything you can do to help us grow it. We're doing our part, and we want to keep engaging. We want to write side content, and we just need to see some more numbers to really encourage us to double down, if you will. Mm-hmm. But I've enjoyed this project quite a bit.
Yeah.
Just like I enjoyed this album. Daniel, what do we got coming up next week?
Do you know?
I don't.
Born This Way by Lady Gaga.
No way. All the way back here.
All the way back here.
All right. Well, I look forward to this quite a bit. I've never actually listened to the album, though I'm familiar with many songs.
Yeah.
Well, until next week, just two happy music listeners saying goodbye.
Bye.
I wanna see the bright lights tonight by Richard and Linda Thompson. Sophisticated folk rock and sick instrumentation.
Backwards Beats Podcast is a Tuna-Wood production recorded live at Thought Shack Studios in Halethorpe, Maryland.
If you enjoyed the show, make sure to subscribe and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
You can find us at Backwards Beats Podcast on most platforms.
Share the love, and we'll see you next week for another deep dive into the next album on Rolling Stone Magazine's Top 500 list. Until then, salt your melons.